Section: Introduction. In this section, we discuss the advancements in training large language models to reason using chain-of-thought techniques, which have significantly improved their capabilities. We note that while these reasoning traces are already being utilized in safety research, there has been limited adaptation of interpretability methods to this new approach. Traditional interpretability methods often analyze a single forward pass of the model, focusing on how activations are processed through layers to produce the final output. However, this method is too detailed for autoregressive reasoning models, which generate their own output tokens. We recognize that a key step in interpretability is breaking down the model into smaller, analyzable parts. For chain-of-thought reasoning, this breakdown can be done by examining individual sentences and their interdependencies. Sentence-level interpretations provide a balanced level of abstraction, as sentences are more coherent than tokens and less likely to mix reasoning steps than paragraphs. Previous research has shown that different sentences in reasoning traces serve unique functions, such as backtracking sentences that prompt the model to revisit earlier conclusions, enhancing accuracy. We propose three complementary methods to map the structure of reasoning traces, focusing on what we call thought anchors, critical reasoning steps that guide the overall reasoning process. Our first method, detailed in the black box framework section, measures the counterfactual impact of a sentence on the model's final answer and subsequent sentences by resampling reasoning traces. This allows us to quantify how each sentence influences the likelihood of final answers and future sentences. In the attention aggregation section, we introduce a white box method that evaluates the importance of sentences based on attention patterns. Our analysis identifies receiver heads that focus attention on specific past sentences, showing that reasoning models exhibit greater attentional narrowing compared to base models, which affects the final answer significantly. Finally, in the attention suppression section, we present a method to measure the causal dependency between sentence pairs in a reasoning trace. By masking attention to a sentence and observing the effects on subsequent tokens, we can assess each sentence's direct causal impact. Through these techniques, we suggest that analyzing reasoning at the sentence level opens new avenues for understanding reasoning models. Our work also paves the way for more precise debugging of reasoning failures, identifying sources of unreliability, and developing methods to enhance the reliability of these models. In our setup, we categorized sentences based on a framework that identifies distinct reasoning functions within a trace. We defined 8 categories, such as problem setup and final answer emission, and assigned each sentence to a category using an LLM-based auto-labeling approach. Our probing classifiers achieved high accuracy in distinguishing these categories. Our analyses utilized the DeepSeek R1 Distill Quen 14b model, with specific parameters set for our experiments. We focused on the math dataset, which includes challenging math questions that the model solves correctly 25 to 75% of the time. For each problem, we generated both correct and incorrect reasoning traces, resulting in an average of 144.2 sentences and 4,208 tokens per response. We concentrated on sentences before the model converged on an answer, ensuring our analysis was relevant. Additional results from other reasoning models are provided in the appendix. Section Summary. In this section, we explore methods for interpreting reasoning in large language models by focusing on sentence-level analysis, which allows us to identify critical reasoning steps, or thought anchors, that guide the reasoning process. We propose 3 complementary techniques, black box resampling, attention aggregation, and attention suppression, to measure the impact and causal relationships of sentences within reasoning traces, ultimately enhancing our understanding and debugging of reasoning models. Section: Measuring counterfactual influence. In this section, we explore how to measure the importance of sentences based on their counterfactual influence, which refers to how the inclusion or exclusion of a sentence impacts the model's final output. We consider the importance of sentences by examining forced answer importance, where we interrupt the model's reasoning to prompt it for a final answer after each sentence. By doing this 100 times for each sentence, we create a distribution of answers linked to each sentence's position. We then assess the impact of a specific sentence on the final answer by measuring the difference in distributions before and after that sentence. Our findings indicate that sentences involving active computation lead to the most significant changes in the answer, supporting the idea that reasoning models adjust their beliefs as they process information. However, we recognize that this method may not fully capture the importance of earlier sentences that are necessary for later answers. Next, we introduce counterfactual importance, which addresses the limitation of the forced answer method. A sentence may be crucial for a final answer but could appear late in the reasoning process, leading to inaccurate assessments of earlier sentences. To define counterfactual importance, we sample the reasoning process and measure how much a specific sentence affects the correctness of the final answer. Our results show that sentences related to planning and managing uncertainty tend to have higher counterfactual importance compared to those focused on fact retrieval or computation. This suggests that organizational sentences play a key role in guiding the reasoning process. We also extend our analysis to quantify how a sentence influences future sentences. This helps us understand the model's reasoning structure, identifying which sentences trigger subroutines or affect future claims. We estimate the counterfactual importance of a sentence on a future sentence by comparing the likelihood of the future sentence occurring with and without the original sentence. A positive score indicates that the original sentence increases the likelihood of the future sentence, while a negative score suggests it inhibits it. Lastly, we hypothesize that important sentences attract more attention from subsequent sentences. While attention weights do not imply causation, we believe that heightened attention may be a way for important sentences to influence later ones. We analyze attention heads to see how they focus on specific sentences, calculating the average attention each sentence receives from downstream sentences. Our analysis reveals that some attention heads significantly concentrate on particular sentences, indicating their potential importance in the reasoning process. Section Summary. In this section, we explore how to measure the importance of sentences in a model's reasoning process through counterfactual influence, highlighting that certain sentences significantly affect the final output and subsequent sentences. We introduce metrics for forced answer importance and counterfactual importance, demonstrating that high-level organizational sentences play a crucial role in guiding reasoning, while also examining how attention mechanisms may indicate the influence of important sentences on future outputs. Section: The identification of receiver heads. In this section, we identify attention heads that focus on specific sentences, which we call receiver heads. These heads are more prevalent in the later layers of our model. To evaluate the presence of receiver heads, we examined whether certain attention heads consistently performed this function by measuring the reliability of their kurtosis scores. We discovered a strong correlation between the kurtosis scores from two halves of our data, indicating that some heads reliably act as receiver heads, although there is some variation in how they focus attention. We found that receiver heads typically direct attention to the same sentences. Among the heads with the highest kurtosis scores, we calculated the correlation of attention scores for each pair of heads across different reasoning traces, resulting in a significant average correlation. This suggests that receiver heads generally focus on the same sentences, although there is some variability. This pattern aligns with the idea that these heads recognize important sentences, which may enhance the reasoning capabilities of our models. When comparing two models, R1 Distill Quen 14b, Reasoning, and Quen 14b, Base, we observed that the reasoning model's receiver heads concentrate more on individual sentences. Additionally, removing receiver heads significantly reduces accuracy compared to randomly removing self-attention heads, reinforcing the special role of receiver heads in reasoning. We also found that certain types of sentences, like those related to plan generation and uncertainty management, receive the most attention from receiver heads, while sentences focused on active computation receive less. This indicates that reasoning traces are structured around key sentences that initiate computations but may not significantly alter the overall reasoning path. Next, we address the concern that attention weights do not indicate causality. We shifted our focus to understanding the direct dependencies between sentences. Our method isolates these direct effects by suppressing attention to a specific sentence and measuring the impact on subsequent sentences. We define this impact using a divergence measure that captures how much the suppression alters the expected outcomes. We validated our approach by comparing the results from our attention suppression method with those from a resampling method. We found a positive correlation between the two matrices across most reasoning traces, particularly for cases where sentences were close together, suggesting that our method effectively captures direct effects. Finally, we will demonstrate the utility of our techniques through a case study, applying them to a specific problem about converting a base 16 number to base 2 and analyzing the model's response. Section Summary. In this section, we identify receiver heads in attention mechanisms that focus on specific sentences, demonstrating their consistent role through strong correlations in kurtosis scores across different problems. Our findings suggest that these heads enhance reasoning performance by directing attention to high-level sentences, which are crucial for computational processes, and we validate our methods for analyzing sentence dependencies to better understand their causal relationships. Section: Resampling. In this section, we explore the resampling process. We begin by noting that the hexadecimal number 66,666 has 5 digits, and each digit can be expressed using 4 binary digits. Initially, we arrive at the answer of 20 bits, but we realize that the hexadecimal digit 6 corresponds to the binary 110, not 0110, leading us to the correct answer of 19 bits. In sentence 13, we shift our focus to this correct answer by converting 66,666 from hexadecimal to decimal and then to binary. Our resampling method highlights the initial misstep and shows a significant improvement in accuracy after this pivot. We can break down the path to the correct answer into several computational steps. First, we create a formula to convert 66,666 from hexadecimal to decimal, which we find equals 419,430. Next, we convert this decimal number to binary using another formula, which tells us that the binary representation requires 19 bits. We then notice a conflict with our earlier 20-bit answer and start new calculations to confirm that our decimal and binary conversions are accurate. With this newfound confidence in the 19-bit answer, we understand that the initial 20-bit proposal was incorrect because leading zeros do not count. Our analysis of attention patterns reveals that certain sentences trigger computations or highlight key conclusions, helping us segment our reasoning into meaningful parts. Additionally, we observe a self-correction pattern where we initially propose an incorrect answer, identify a discrepancy, and ultimately resolve it. This process illustrates a cycle of reasoning where conflicting conclusions prompt us to clarify our understanding. We also released an open-source interface for analyzing and visualizing reasoning traces, which can be represented as a directed acyclic graph. This interface allows users to inspect important sentences and their relationships, enhancing interpretability and debugging. Finally, we discuss how chain-of-thought reasoning has significantly improved the capabilities of large language models. However, these advancements also introduce new safety challenges, as we cannot always trust the model's reasoning to be accurate. Our approach emphasizes the importance of individual steps in reasoning, suggesting that some sentences are more critical than others in driving the final answer. We aim to provide a clearer understanding of how reasoning traces are constructed around these key sentences, focusing on the interdependence between them. Section Summary. In this section, we analyze the model's reasoning process as it corrects its initial answer of 20 bits to the accurate 19 bits for the binary representation of 66,666_16, highlighting the importance of computational chunks and self-correction patterns. We also introduce an open-source interface for visualizing reasoning traces, which aids in understanding the dependencies and causal relationships between key sentences in the model's reasoning. Section: Discussion and Limitations. In this section, we discuss our initial efforts to break down reasoning traces, focusing on identifying key sentences that significantly influence the model's final response and future reasoning paths. We have started to explore the attention mechanisms linked to these crucial sentences. We believe that understanding these key sentences, or thought anchors, is essential for interpreting reasoning models and ensuring their safety. However, we recognize that this is just the beginning. Our analyses need further refinement to better understand how future sentences may be influenced by various paths in a reasoning trace or by independent causes. We also have not formally looked at the role of error correction. Our analysis of sentence positioning in reasoning traces complicates our findings. Additionally, our work on attention suppression is limited because it requires the model to handle information that is outside its usual training data. Despite these limitations, we feel that we have made progress with our metrics, which interrupt models and influence their final answers. The unexpected similarities we found across our three methods highlight the potential for future research in this area and suggest that more effective interpretability techniques may emerge.